Good morning, everyone, and welcome to the OBX wave report for January the 3rd, 2023. 2023, man, that just feels weird saying. Does that feel weird saying to you? I don't know. Like every year that comes by, you definitely adjust to a new year, but there's just something about 2023 that doesn't quite, I don't know. It doesn't seem symmetrical. It doesn't. I guess it rolls off the tongue nicely, but it doesn't sit in your brain nicely. But in any case, welcome to the OBX Wave Report, where we discuss all things waves, weather, and climate with a specific focus on the Outer Banks, but a more regional and global focus as we discuss climate trends, because climate trends and extreme weather trends really affect us here at the Outer Banks. Today, we have two big events in the weather and climate picture that we're going to do some special reports on immediately following this wave report, which focuses more on the Outer Banks and more on surfing. For these special reports, we're going to pull back and talk a little bit more about weather and climate for our two big events that are right in the pipe now for both California and the UK. And to use some surfer terminology, it's looking pretty sick out there, pretty gnarly in the climate picture and weather picture for those two regions. Thank goodness it's not here, not right now that we're looking at the craziness. But yeah, it's some serious stuff going on. If you're in California or um, Ireland, Scotland, parts of lower England, please keep your eyes to your local emergency weather broadcasts because there's some serious weather in the pipe for both of those regions. But for the Outer Banks here, conditions are pretty placid, enjoyable, peaceful. I don't know. There's all these nice adjectives that I could use to describe the calm, enjoyable weather we've been having. It's just been wonderful. My wife and I enjoyed a fantastic walk up at Jockey's Ridge yesterday. I say walk, it's more of a hike. And I don't know, it just feels like, um, here, the way I feel about it, it's kind of almost like a perpetual springtime kind of feeling. We're having temperatures in the 50s, 60s, sometimes 70s. Particularly here in Manio, it's just calm and warm and enjoyable. Occasionally, of course, we'll get a cold flash, and we did get a cold flash with a bomb cyclone that came through. But for the most part, it's just been extraordinarily pleasant. As for wave conditions, waves are ranging from 1 to 3 feet across the Outer Banks, with waves really starting to fall down on the northern beaches. And in the southern beaches, the waves are tapering off a little bit, but still maintaining in the 2 to 3 foot range. And we'll get into that a little bit more. This satellite picture is from NOAA, and it's showing the satellite from a couple of hours ago when it was still dark before the sun came in. And it's just a beautiful picture showing it's just a beautiful picture showing the US East Coast and the the lights and the clouds, which are just, I don't know, it's vaporous, um it's majestic. You see the glow of the city lights, and in addition to that, you're seeing this swirl of clouds. And I'm just gonna back off here a little bit so you can get a bigger picture. Here out west, there's a number of storms rolling in, and that's going to continue. And the North Atlantic is starting to get stormy here off of Greenland. So I just wanted to point those out because we're going to be talking about those things a little bit more. Looking at the infrared satellite for the lower 48 of the US, we've got a storm system in the central US that's firing off some severe weather over the Mississippi River Valley region and into the Ohio Valley. with a low pressure system running up here into the Dakotas, Minnesota, Iowa area. We've got a stream of moisture coming in off the U.S. Into the U.S. West Coast off a much warmer than normal Pacific Ocean. We're going to talk about that a little bit more. And we got this frontal boundary feeding into the central and North Atlantic, which is providing some energy telegraphing north toward Greenland and Iceland in that region. And we're going to talk about that a little bit more in some of our special reports as well. Looking at the near shore wave conditions for the Outer Banks, we find that the swell right now is mostly coming from the south and in some cases from the southwest. And the swell just offshore is in the range of 3 to 4 feet. It's not translating fully to the beaches. The beaches are seeing waves in the range of 1 to 2 feet north and 2 to 3 feet south. Looking at our specific locations, we are going to start out at Jeanette's Pier toward the north, and we have wave conditions that are steadily tapering off here at Jeanette's Pier. They're slowly but steadily tapering off. We're right now looking at 1 to 2 foot waves at Jeanette's Pier. And so those 1 to 2 foot waves are coming in at 8 seconds at an 8-second period with just the primary swell dominating, not really much of a secondary swell. Winds are coming out of the south-southwest at 11 miles per hour, which is an offshore flow, helping to keep those waves smooth and glassy and pretty hollow. Waves on the Outer Banks during this time of year seem to be really, really hollow, and with those westerlies, that helps hollow them out even more. The air temperature right now at Jeanette's Pier is relatively pleasant for January, 55 degrees Fahrenheit, which matches the ocean water temperature, which is also 55 degrees Fahrenheit. You're going to need your 3-4 mil wetsuits, your hood, your boots, your gloves if you're going to be comfortable out there in the water today. Now, I can tell you that from experience. Trying a 3-2 out there, it's way too cold for that, at least for me. I don't know. Maybe you're a polar bear and you can handle a 3-2 in those conditions, but I cannot. The weather conditions are partly cloudy right now with an expected high of 62 with more cloudy conditions moving in over the course of the day. And for the Outer Banks, just generally, we're going to expect more stormy weather to start to settle in tomorrow and Thursday. Nothing really major, but stormy-er conditions. We're going to head on south down Route 12 to Hatteras for our second location for our OBX wave report today. So looking at Hatteras, and this is the east-facing beaches near beach access ramp 43 that we're looking at, where wave heights are in the 2 to 3 foot range. So 2 to 3 foot waves there at Hatteras for the east-facing beaches, as what's happening is the southerly swell, the swell coming in from the south, is wrapping around there and providing those 2 to 3 foot waves. And the angle of the waves coming in on shore is coming from basically the southeast as those swells wrap around. So you're going to get a lot of right-hand turns out of these swells as they come in from the south and east. These 2 to 3 foot waves are coming in with a primary swell of 9 seconds and 5 seconds for the secondary swell. Winds are out of the southwest at 10 miles per hour, which is offshore here at this location. Air temperatures are 64 degrees Fahrenheit and ocean water temperatures are 67. A bit warmer. You could probably handle a 3-2 at this location. I handled a 3-2 under similar conditions down at Avon a couple of days ago, and it was just fine. I don't know. Some people might want more hand or foot coverage, so your mileage may vary based on your sensitivity to cold water. Weather conditions are partly cloudy, with an expected high today of 64 degrees Fahrenheit at Hatteras at the beach access ramp 43 and surrounding locations near the lighthouse. And for our last location, we're going to pick a south-facing beach because the swells are generally better to the south here. And we're going to go ahead and just pick Ocracoke near the Ocracoke Beach area. And I haven't done Ocracoke in a little while. It's just a really charming island, kind of like a hobbit town of an island, just a fun, magical place. And this time of year is no exception, actually. It's a lot sleepier this time of year, a lot less tourism. Now's a good time to go because it's not crowded. And if you want to avoid the crowds, wintertime is a really great time to visit anywhere on the Outer Banks. The one detractor is a lot of the local businesses tend to close down. And well, I'm going to say there's two detractors. Local businesses tend to close down and then they're not very good at updating their websites. So if you check their website, oftentimes you won't know when they've closed. They'll have their like schedule laid out and they might be ambitious and thinking, okay, well, we're going to just go ahead and do this week anyway. And then they get in and there's not that much business and they're like, oh, I'll just go surfing or do whatever. And they close and they leave a sign up on the door that says gone fishing or gone surfing or whatnot. And there's nothing on the website. You show up there and it's closed. So that is something to look out for if you are visiting the Outer Banks during this time of year. But otherwise, it's a very pleasant time to visit if you want to avoid the crowds and enjoy the seclusion of the Outer Banks, which is just a lot of fun. And one of the most secluded places on the Outer Banks is Ocracoke. And today at Ocracoke, waves are 2 to 3 feet, with a primary swell coming in with those 2 to 3 foot waves, the larger parts of those 2 to 3 foot waves coming in at 9 seconds, with a secondary swell coming in at 5 seconds. Winds are out of the west at 9 miles per hour. Winds are out of the southwest at 9 miles per hour, which is cross shore with this beach angling almost directly southwest here. Air temperatures are in the range of 62 degrees down at Ocracoke, with ocean water temperatures at 65. Interesting that you have cooler waters here at Ocracoke than you do at Hatteras. There's a reason for that. Hatteras juts more out into the Atlantic Ocean, catches more of that Gulf Stream water coming in. And so sometimes Hatteras can be warmer even than Ocracoke, even though Ocracoke is more southerly position. The weather at Ocracoke is partly cloudy with an expected high today of 65 degrees Fahrenheit, with clouds rolling in more toward the afternoon and stormier conditions running in through tomorrow and Thursday. Looking at the longer term weather picture for both the Outer Banks and the lower 48, things are starting to get a little interesting. Actually, I would say very interesting when it comes to weather and climate. And we see the first indicator of this in the Climate Prediction Center map provided by the National Weather Service in the 8 to 14 day outlook, which shows above normal temperatures for all of the United States with much warmer than normal temperatures running in through the central US. These warmer than normal temperatures aren't really the major part of this story, but it is worth noting that there is a serious climate imprint anytime you see warmer than normal temperatures on the Earth's surface, be it ocean or land. And this is something that we're seeing here in the US. Not every region of the world is experiencing warmer than normal temperatures today, but most regions of the world are. Now, looking at the precipitation outlook, that's where we really start to get an indicator that something gnarly is starting to go off in the climate here. And our eyes do turn to the Outer Banks where we're expected to see above normal precipitation conditions, which is an indicator of generally increased storminess. But if we're looking at the weather models, there's nothing really popping up yet that's extreme. So we've just got impulses of stormier weather tending to come through the Outer Banks, but nothing really extreme expected. But we would be remiss if we did not mention this. And to our left here, for California and particularly Central California, there is extreme above average rainfall potential here. And this extreme above average rainfall potential is coming in, it's happening now. We're getting multiple impulses of storms in the Pacific region and in California. But what's happening is that models are lining up for a river, an atmospheric river, and we've already had a few of these hit the West Coast, but a pretty intense atmospheric river in the 3 to 5 day time frame in the models. And that's close enough in the models to have some certainty. Of course, it still could peter out, but right now the forecasts are pointing toward a extraordinary precipitation event for California, and I'll talk more about that in a special report later. But I just want to want to turn your eyes to that as we draw out and talk about the larger climate picture. I'm going to go ahead and run a global forecast system model for the larger United States so you can see these storms rolling in through the west and the tendency for stormier weather generally for the mid-Atlantic and the Outer Banks region as we get a number of impulses just running through here. But just look at this, just waves of stormy weather just coming into the West Coast, just wave after wave after wave. And it's just doesn't let up really much at all through this forecast period from January 3rd all the way up, I believe, to does this one end on the 19th? Let's look. Just advance it. Yeah, all the way. So from the 3rd to the 19th in this weather model, you get wave after wave after wave of storm system coming in through the western U.S. and then particularly impacting California. So this is something to watch, to keep an eye on. And for the U.S. East Coast, it's not so bad. It's just generally stormier, but none of the storms are looking really crazy, at least in these models. I don't know, maybe here on the ground things will seem a little bit stormier. We'll have to just keep appraised of conditions. I did want to show you one of the models pointing toward an atmospheric river running in toward California. You see this stream of moisture running in off the Pacific, and this is for the January 8th time frame in the model, so in about 5 days. But what we see in the models is just these impulses of moisture and storms just slamming into the West Coast in a very persistent pattern. It's that persistence which is pretty important, although in the weather models, like for this time period, things are predicted to get pretty stormy, and we're going to talk about that a bit more in the special reports. Looking at the jet stream, we have a very strong storm track running across the Pacific with a tendency to dip into the West Coast and generally through the U.S., having dips in the jet stream. And this would tend to pull in low pressure systems and have more intense stormy conditions overall. And the focus right now is for the West Coast. It's also worth noting that there's this dip here south of Greenland, and we're looking at a major storm, a bomb cyclone type event developing south and east of Greenland, and then running in toward Ireland, Scotland, and other portions of the UK here. And then last of all, I just did want to look at the wave models to show you some of the potentials for these for one of the extreme storm systems with very large, near 40-foot waves off the British Isles projected for January 7th. And running in very close, like if you go close to shore in Ireland, you're looking at 26-foot significant wave heights. And yeah, this is the end of the model here. So extraordinarily high wave conditions predicted for the British Isles over the next 4 days, as a large storm system is projected to develop here, powerful storm system southeast of Greenland. And we're going to talk about that more in our special reports as well. All right, and last of all, I wanted to show you the broader picture for the North Atlantic, and we're going to go ahead and run the model here for you guys. And as you can see, these impulses intensify pretty rapidly here south and east of Greenland. This is the storm system that I am talking about here for the major impacts for the UK and Ireland. And in this model on Friday, January 6th, we're predicting the global forecast system is predicting a 943 millibar storm, extraordinarily powerful storm that continues to intensify to a 938 millibar storm as it tracks eastward into later Friday, and then maintains in the 940 millibar range throughout Saturday as it tracks toward the UK region here and toward Ireland and Scotland, and just comes right offshore, just hurling stormy conditions at the coastlines of Ireland, Scotland, and Britain here, and then kind of meanders between Iceland and the British Isles for a time. And when I say a time, it looks like at least a day before wrapping back in through Scotland after weakening a bit. So a major multi-day storm event for the UK here. And it's just generally worth noting that more storms tend to form in this region south of Greenland. There's a tendency for cyclones to bomb out here. So here we have another 940 millibar system predicted on January 12th, and that's further on in the model, so we can take that with a bit of a grain of salt, 945, 949. So nearly as strong as the previous storm system, with a serious tendency for these storms to bomb out here south and east of Greenland. And that will conclude the OBX wave report for January the 3rd. Thank you for joining me, and please remember to do everything you can to save our beautiful coastlines from the impacts of climate change driven by fossil fuel burning. And the main action right now that we all need to really be focusing on is a rapid transition to clean energy. So thank you for joining me once again, and I'm going to just immediately transition to a couple of special reports on these big storm systems that are coming for, or predicted to come for, both the UK and California. We're going to look a little bit closer at some of the models and talk more about these storms. And I'll probably be back up with you in about 15 to 30 minutes as I prep these.